Hello friends! Cubic Odyssey came out last week, and I've been playing it a fair bit since it came out. Since I started, I've learned a good deal about how the game works, and I wanted to share what I've learned with you. Cubic Odyssey is a survival game that can both be one that respects your time, but also a game that can occasionally make you throw your keyboard across the room if you take it lightly and you die at the wrong time. And so, here's my first tip. Save often. Especially save anytime after you find a cool item that you want to keep, or before and after you go explore or raid anything. This is very important because while the game does occasionally autosave, I have never had an instance where I could depend on that feature to save me from frustration. Dying damages all your items by approximately 25%. And I mean any item that's on you that has durability. Most of the time, it's not really a big deal since it doesn't affect the effectiveness of any item, and you will respawn instantly. The problem is that if you want to quickly get back into the action and you don't take the time to repair your equipment, and it could take a little bit of time, there is a chance that you'll die, and now you'll be at 50%. And guess what? Items that drop to 0% will be destroyed, and if your backpack is destroyed, you will also lose any items that were inside it. So to avoid frustration, take advantage of the save system. The game actually offers two different types of repairing benches. The first is the one that you can craft, and it allows you to repair any item to full by using spare components. Basically, you put your item on your bench, and it tells you what components are required to repair it. Repairing benches can often be found in standard human buildings or outposts, and of course you can build your own. But there is also a second type of repairing bench that, as far as I can tell, is not craftable by players. This also appears in standard human buildings. This second repairing bench has a cubit symbol on the front, and it will allow you to repair items in exchange for qubits. This bench can be a really handy way to repair certain items that are expensive to repair with components, or maybe just with a component you don't happen to have handy. Shortly after you travel to your first other planet, you'll need to build the Darkness Purifier. In order to do so, you'll need to purchase a logic board that is locked behind trading skill level 2. I found that the fastest and easiest way to level the trading skill up to level 2, and probably beyond, is to buy and sell weapons from the weapon trader. You can of course also do this with the normal trader, but the weapon trader works more effectively, possibly because the amount traded per item is generally higher. So this is tip 3A, it's not exactly a full tip. Basically what I did that seems to work well is to go to a nearby settlement. Then I found a collect 8 items quest for something that can easily be gathered nearby, like rocks, snails, fungus or flowers. Then you complete that quest and it will give you some money. Then you use that money to buy a better gun. If you're still short on the trading level, then use that gun to hunt for pirates and then sell their weapons to the weapon trader. That will definitely get you enough of a trading level to buy the circuit boards. And that leads me directly to the next tip. When you first start out, your suit's battery is a constant worry. If you run out of batteries, your weapons won't work well, and you won't be able to sprint or use your jetpack. Using your weapons and extractor are all ways of draining your batteries, and in fact, the tier 1 batteries will drain quite fast. I found myself constantly crafting batteries, and still running out of battery while exploring due to getting into a fight with some local fauna. That is, until I figured out the endless supply of batteries. Pirates. You see, pirate mobs always drop a battery when you kill them, and sometimes they drop too. In fact, if you raid a pirate base, you will probably end up dropping batteries in order to pick up more valuable loot. So my tip is that as soon as you get yourself a decent weapon, grab a couple of spare batteries, empty your inventory, and go hunt down a pirate tower or a base. Gather all the juicy batteries that you get and take them back to your base for storage. Repeat as many times as you want with different pirate towers, and don't forget to save. Cubic Odyssey has a blueprint functionality. Although designating the blueprint area is a bit finicky, and it doesn't include any objects, just blocks, I have found them useful as a way of quickly setting up a simple base when traveling between planets. If your goal is convenience, the key at the beginning is to keep things simple. The shape, of course, can be whatever you want, but for the sake of being able to get this video out on time, I'm just using a cube. As I said, using the blueprint tool is finicky because the controls for it are frankly, how do I put it, horrible. You can move the volume around at the center by holding your left mouse button and scrolling, and you can zoom out a fair bit to see what you're trying to capture. You're also able to increase or decrease the size of the cube that you can use to capture. But you can't change the camera angle, and if you spend too long moving around the environment, the camera will get snagged somehow, and you can no longer move that cube anywhere, forcing you to quit out. If your structure is set on a slope, it's also going to be very hard to figure out the bottom of what you're capturing. Even so, if you follow my tips, you can still make use of this feature to quickly create a basic structure. If they ever work out the kinks of this feature, I think it could eventually be very useful in creating larger structures. And by the way, you can capture blueprints of NPC structures. Only build your template on fully natural flat ground. If you flatten the ground out yourself, the template sometimes captures some of those blocks as well, which you might not want. Build your structure on stilts to ensure that the bottom is always captured in the blueprint. Again, if you're building on flat ground, this is less of an issue. If you place the blueprint hologram somewhere where there isn't enough room for the whole structure, it will still be built, but embedded into the obstructing cubes. You can dig out any extra blocks inside or outside the structure. If you only use one block type to build a structure, including not using slopes or stair blocks, it will be easier to carry everything you want on your spaceship cargo, as less inventory slots will be used. Aside from the blocks of the structure, you'll want to take whatever secondary objects you find useful. Usually something like a furnace, an armory, a build bench, fuel for the furnace, and a portal. Then just ensure that you can carry that material with you when you fly to a new planet, and it will be much easier to get started there. I also suggest testing out your blueprint before you head out, because I occasionally found that certain blueprints do not correctly state the number of cubes that are required to build it. For example, I have this 350 block blueprint, then in reality uses up more like 800 blocks to build it. So test it out, see what the reality is before you head out. You can always use your extractor to get all your building blocks back. Once you acquire your first ship, you can interact with it to access its inventory. You'll note that your inventory has tabs, but only the first one can be accessed because your ship's cargo is very small at this point. However, you can expand your ship's cargo capability by crafting a couple of chests and physically placing them on your ship. If you look at your ship's inventory screen, you will see that it has appliance slots. You can use up as many open slots as are available, and the starting ship has 3 open slots that can be used with chests or any other appliance that you'd like to place down. If you move your ship into the territory of your base, and you will get a message that shows you that you are in the territory, then its inventory will be available to the crafting station on your base, including the contents of any chests on the ship. When you acquire a new ship, if you want to move your appliances from your old ship to the new one, you must do that before you pilot the new ship, because as soon as you pilot your new ship, the old ship will despawn. I think the only way to respawn it at that point is to go to a space station dock, but there may be other ways that I'm not aware of yet. At some point, you'll start to need energy capsules in order to craft certain items or upgrades. The main way of obtaining these is to recycle items at a recycling bench. In fact, it looks like energy capsules are the only item that is provided by recycling benches. You can often find them in standard human buildings. Mining is a lot more deterministic in Cubic Odyssey than it ever was in Minecraft. That said, simply digging into the ground and following your bot's directions can be quite a slow way of attaining large quantities of minerals. What I have found to be the best source of exposed ore for mining are the ancient ruined shafts that you'll see scattered on all planets. These shafts will always have a good amount of ore inside them visible for mining, similar to the Minecraft mine shafts. Do note that there are also always pirates hanging out there for some reason, so you'll need to have your first gun upgrade before you venture down there. There is usually at least one chest inside them with additional ore as loot as well. Fully mine out a few of these shafts and you'll quickly get a lot of ore without a lot of trouble. Additionally, you'll get all the loot from the chests and from the pirates. Oh, and don't forget to save your game. And there you have it. I hope that if you're starting out, these tips serve as a good launching ground for your next Cubic Odyssey journey. And if you've already been journeying for a while, I'm curious as to whether any of these tips were useful. Please share any tips that you may have for me as well. I'm very curious as to how others approach the game. As always, thank you very much for watching. Please share this with anyone that you think might enjoy the game, and I'll catch you on the next one.